Most people, in trying to find a tenant for a property, use the conventional for rent or for lease side. But surely there've got to be better ways of doing that. Today we're going to explore 3 creative ways of getting a tenant that are going to really surprise you. So let's get rid of this conventional way of finding a tenant and get on to 3 creative ways of getting a tenant for your commercial space. Now you may wonder, why should we get creative? Why would we even need to do this? Well, here's the thing. Most commercial owners, they fear the day when they'll have a vacancy because they know that it's pretty hard, or it can be pretty hard, to get a tenant. And if you're in that category, if you think it's hard to get a tenant, then this is the right video for you, because I'm going to show you how it's easy to get a tenant. In fact, I've made most of my money in commercial real estate by actually hunting down and finding vacant or near vacant commercial space and knowing how to get a tenant for it, because it's in getting a tenant that the value of the building goes up astronomically. Unlike residential property, the value of a commercial property is a multiple of its rental income. In other words, if you can figure out a way of doubling the rental income from a commercial property, then you will double its value. That's how I've made most of my money. I've said in commercial real estate, I have found vacant buildings, put a tenant in them, and then the value has gone up enormously. I'm going to show you how you can do the same. Idea number 2 is, imagine if you've got a commercial building and it's in a very hot city, perhaps a bit like Phoenix or Las Vegas, or maybe in a city with a lot of rain. Seattle comes to mind, of course. In that case, if the tenants have to park their vehicles outside, it's going to be in the sun all day long, or subject to a lot of rain. If you build a carport, which isn't that expensive in the scheme of things, if you build one, you may not be able to rent out the space under the carport, but what will happen is the rental per square foot of your office space or warehouse space will go up. Because in deciding which office to lease, the owners of the business are going to say, well, hang on a minute, if we lease this space, all our vehicles will be undercover. They won't get so scorchingly hot in the summer. It won't be 150 degrees inside. It'll only be 120. And it's about what it happens in the real world. Cars act like glass houses, but having it covered will reduce the heat load and also the fading of the car. So people value having carports. And the cost of creating these carports relative to the rental income you're going to get is negligible. I actually did this myself in Phoenix. I had a commercial office building. It was largely vacant. There was only 2 spaces that were covered by a car park. I ended up covering 30 car parks with a carport, and then the occupancy rate went to 100%. It's a simple thing to do. Anyone can do it, and it increases the value of your building when you go to refinance the building. All right, the third method involves the office of a warehouse. Imagine we are trying to lease out a warehouse, and it's ugly, and it's dull and boring, and it's vacant, and it's in a sea of similarly ugly, boring, and horrible warehouses. My contention is that we would get a tenant for our warehouse relatively quickly while all the others still remain vacant. And most people say, well, that's impossible. Why would someone rent your warehouse if it's similar to all the other vacant warehouses? And here's the answer I'd give them. Who decides whether to lease a warehouse? Is it the coffee or tea lady or man who's going to make coffee or tea? And the answer is no, of course not. Is it the president of the company, the head office in New York or Paris or wherever? And the answer is no. It's going to be the manager who's going to manage that warehouse. He's assigned the task of finding which warehouse to lease. So what do? I take the manager's office and I convert it into the most salubrious office people can imagine. Replace the linoleum on the floor with commercial-grade carpet. Replace the fluorescent light bulbs, they're horrible, with LED bulbs. Replace the locks with electronic locks so we can never forget or lose his keys. Replace the single glazed windows with dual or triple paned windows. It keeps the heat or the cold out and reduces the noise. Put a massive 60-inch LCD screen on the wall and tell him it's good for watching corporate training videos. And we all know he's not going to watch corporate training videos on that LCD screen, but it gives him a line he can use when he talks with head office as to why he leased our building. Put in a little fridge there for end-of-week drinks to celebrate the end of the week. Put in a coffee machine and have it running and have it brewing so that when someone looks inside the room, they can smell the coffee. And I guarantee you, when our manager comes along to look at our warehouse, after he's already looked at 5 equally boring and ugly warehouses, and he pokes his head in through that door, whether he likes it or not, whether you like it or not, subconsciously he's going to think, holy smoke, if I lease this premise, then this is going to be my office for the next Lord knows how many years. And he will say, I'll take it, probably without even asking what the rental is. So that's the thing to do. What you want to do is make that manager's office so salubrious, so enticing, that he's going to think, wow, I want to have this space. I want to have this as my office. Is it bribery and corruption? I don't think so. I think it's just matching the market with what clients want. And if you make your product slightly better than the opposition, then they'll lease yours first. If you manufacture a car that has more features, it goes faster, it's safer than the opposition, people will buy your car. It's the same in real estate. It's just the natural forces of supply and demand. It's commerce working in action. So I've just given you 3 ideas as to how you can attract a tenant to a vacant space, how you can improve the value of your property by getting a better tenant. And they are 3 ideas, but why stop at 3? I have created 101 ways of massively increasing the value of your real estate without spending much money. And it is not possible to read this book without coming up with a dozen ideas that you can apply right away to a property that you own. And even if you don't own it, when you're looking at a property to buy, it might be on the market for $1 million. Is that good value or not? We don't know yet. I haven't given you any other details on it, but it's worth $1 million. But if you apply even a dozen or 2 dozen of these ideas, you might make that building worth $1.3 million to you or $1.4 million to you. It makes what you see out in the market a bargain. You never learn less. That is why I always say the most valuable piece of real estate is the 6 inches, give or take an inch or 2 between your right ear and your left ear, because it's what you create in that space that ultimately determines your passive income and therefore your net worth. Thank you again for watching. You know, by absorbing things like this, you can make lots of this. And it's one of those things where if you want to make a lot of money, it seems like a lot of money right now, but the more you get into this game, the more you think, well, that's not that much. Make $1 million acquisition seem a relatively small acquisition for you and just something you do in the normal course of events. Remember to hit that subscribe button, do whatever you need to do to ring the bell, and make sure to check out our next video where I'll be showing even more ways of you to creatively make good money with commercial real estate. And in the meantime, I want to wish you, as always, successful investing.